Human resource is the biggest acquisition, or rather the biggest asset to any of the organization. As a subject, human resource management has always been a very interesting one, trying to understand how we are in terms of managing. Probably this is a subject which I would like to say that people always want to understand. After studying HR, what am I going to do? Good morning and welcome to the introductory session for the Human Resource Management 4th Sem BBA, where we are going to look into what the subject is all about, the syllabus, its contents, what are all the aspects in terms of the skill development activities that have been given, and how we are going to take forward in terms of the exams. So just going forward, let's try to talk about the agenda. At the beginning, we're going to talk about the syllabus, we're going to talk about the learning outcome, the units, the internals, and the exam pattern. So let's go directly into the syllabus. As a subject, human resource management has always been a very interesting one, trying to understand how we are in terms of managing the human resources, the most important aspect of the organization. Now, starting with the syllabus, the module 1, we have the introduction to human resource management, which we are quite familiar. And going forward, we're talking about acquisition of human resources, HRP, which is human resource planning. And to the entry stage, then we talk about the training and development, which is a very important aspect in organizations today, followed by performance appraisals, where we talk about internal mobility and compensation. And the last module, where we are talking about the separation process, the exit stage, the trends and the challenges in HRM. So let's have a deep dive before we start getting into the subject. What's going to be the outcome of learning this entire subject? The first thing is that you're going to identify the goals of human resource management. Probably this is a subject which I would like to say that people always want to understand. After studying HR, what am I going to do? Where am I going to land? But the most important aspect is that you are going to be a leader among the people, trying to understand what they are, who they are, and how do they contribute to the organization. The ability to understand the core concepts of the function right from the entry to exit. I think organizations also follow a life cycle just like human beings. As we enter this world through our birth, and then we take an exit out of this world through our death. Similarly, for every organization, employees come in and they leave the organization. So in between, there is a time period which needs to be managed by the organization, and that's where the importance of HRM comes into picture. Followed by, you will be able to understand recruitment, selection, training methodology, and the performance appraisal, followed by the most important, compensation and the separation process. Now, understanding the cycle of recruitment, how much they need to be paid, what should be the training that should be given to that particular person, how we need to communicate, how we need to bring that person to the role that has been described, and at the end of the day, if the person wants to leave the organization, what should be the reasons and why that person is leaving. So every structure of the organization has been determined and spoken here. To establish the link between the theoretical aspect and recent trends in HRM as an entity. So this is also very, very important. Why? Because there is a sea of changes that has been going on in the human resource management, especially after the AI coming into the picture. So this is definitely going to be quite a challenging and an interesting subject to look out. Now let's get into the module 1 introduction, definition of HRM, where we're going to see about the scope, evolution, differences, personal management, importance and functions of this department, which is very, very important for us because this will introduce you to the subject, make you understand what HRM is all about. followed by the module 2, where you're going to talk about human resource planning. Why this is important is because today we are talking about not just the job availability, but we are also talking about the functionality aspect, which means for what job should I recruit you? Why should I recruit you? What should be the title? How you need to perform, and what are all the factors that are associated with the job. So there is a whole lot of planning that needs to be done, forecasting of how many people you need for that particular year, for that financial year to happen. All those things are going to be spoken in the human resource planning system. Followed by, we are also going to talk about acquisition factors, where we're going to talk about selection induction process. I would say that human resource is the biggest acquisition, or rather the biggest asset to any of the organization. Whenever you hear about those big names in the corporate sector, the success of the organization has always been able to be defined by the human resources. So moment your resume is being passed on to an organization, they look at you as a person who can contribute to the success of the organization, contribute to the values, to the growth process of the organization. So the company makes an effort to acquire a resource, train him, select him, put him to a particular role, to a particular designation, find out how much would be the cost to the company, and then take you forward into the organization. So all those things are going to be discussed in this particular module. Followed by which the training and development. This is very, very important and interesting chapter. Why? Because how should a person be trained? Although you have years of experience before joining a new company, for that organization, you are still considered to be a fresher. The reason is that that organization has a set of values, has a methodology of how the work needs to be delivered. Keeping that in mind, you need to be trained according to the needs of the organization and not according to the will and wish of the person. So training and development forms a very important aspect of growth, where it tries to tell people how you need to modulate yourself, how you need to change, adapt yourself to the needs of the organization and take it forward. So every step of the training is being carefully designed to make the resource person more accountable, more onto the delivery side, and make him increase his productivity, so that in the long run, the organization is able to create a win-win situation with every resource that they have selected. Followed by which the fourth one, performance appraisal. I think this is a very, very important, interesting, and rather the most wanted chapter in human resource, because everybody needs an appraisal in life. Everybody wants to get recognized. Everybody wants to get rewarded for their hard work that they have put in. So when we are going to talk about the performance appraisal, we are going to talk about the different methods that have been brought in human resource management today to make the people understand how they are going to be appraised, how they are going to be checked upon, how they're going to be benchmarked across the various factors of the organization. And not to forget, when we talk about deputations, promotions, and transfer, all these things are going to be talked in detail. Now, similarly, we're going to talk about compensation. Now, this is quite a sensitive subject, quite a sensitive topic all about. Why? Because whenever we talk about compensation, people really get completely onto the edge of their seat altogether, because compensation is what actually determines your position in the organization. That's the most interesting part, because at the end of the day, you're not going to work for charity, but you're going to work for money. So that's exactly where this compensation module comes in, which tries to make you understand how organization determine your pay structure, on what basis, and how much they're going to pay you in terms of the paper value and in terms of the actual value. Followed by which we also going to talk about the separation stage, quite a painful stage for any of the person in the organization as well as for the company, because moment you go and say that I want to resign from the current position, that is definitely going to create a kind of unpleasant atmosphere to the organization. But nevertheless, what happens here is that people change company because they find a better aspect, they find a better avenue for growth in different sectors. So the cycle of selection, recruitment, and separation is always there for all the organizations. So somewhere down the lane, we will always try to balance ourselves, trying to find out how much people are leaving and how many people needs to be recruited to keep the HR function always active. Now, with that, we are also going to talk about talent management, which is going to be a very, very big thing that's coming into picture today, because, talent management is all about how we are going to manage people, how their, skills are going to be brought onto the main era, and how we are going to take it forward in terms of mapping the workforce. Now, we have a set of skill development activities, which is really fantastic, that has been brought up by the University of Mysuru. So I would like to talk about this, where we're going to talk about, draw a diagram showing the functional departments of HR, qualifications to becoming a HR officer. And now we're also going to talk about job specification, various job titles that are being spoken about, mock selection interviews. And under the guidance of the teacher, we are also going to learn about select few organization, collect information on the type of training that has been given Department of Employees to their company. So this is going to be entirely a very, very interesting part on which we are going to do this entire paper all about. So this is definitely a very good aspect for each one of us to present. Now, we're also going to do about some resume templates. We're going to talk about salary of structure of the white-collar employees. And then we're going to talk about a comparative scenario. We're also going to talk about some, areas where we're going to talk about the Officers Training Academy and the Apex Training Institutes of India, how they are doing it. So a lot of skill-based activities that are going to come into picture. And all these things will be quite interesting for us to talk about. With that, let me come to internals. That is the real crux part of this meeting. Why? Because there is going to be a 30 marks that's coming in for your internals. For the first internals, it's unit 1 and 2. And for the second internals, it will be 3, 4, and 5. Now, attending both the internals is mandatory. Why? Because it's always going to be an average. That means A plus B divided by 2. That's very, very important. And, I always believe that it's mandatory for all of us to score good, prepare yourself well, and take it forward. So I would always say that please make sure that you attend both the internals and try to score the maximum marks. Followed by which, let us go to the question paper pattern. It's going to be an 80 marks paper. That means it's a 3 hours paper. And this is a weightage under which you'll have part A, B, and C. Now, let me look into part A, where you will have about 15 marks 2 question. Part B, where you will have 10 marks question coming in. And part C, where you'll have 5 marks question coming in. My suggestion to all the students here is that always give importance to the first 3 units if you want to score good marks. Why? Because that's the weightage of the paper always tilts towards that side. That doesn't mean that you leave the 4th and 5th apart. You also give some importance there. But the first 3 units, if you have really prepared well, you can score very good in this paper, and you can also increase your percentage. Followed by which, let me talk about the books for reference today. These are the books that are going to come for reference. Human Resource Management by V.S.P. Rao, by K. Ashwatthappa, L.M. Prasad, and Rosi Joshi. So I would request all the students to kindly buy any one of this reference book, which will be helpful for you both from the textual standpoint and also from the learning standpoint. With this, let me come to the end of this particular session. I hope and believe that all of you would have understood the various components like the syllabus, the modules, and the skill development activities, followed by the internals as well as the external examination. I hope and believe that this journey of learning HRM will bring in a great amount of excitement, a great amount of learning experience to all of us, and we shall begin this new semester with a greater hope, with greater belief that we will make our path towards success. So thank you once again for joining me today on this wonderful session. You have a great day ahead.